You know, there's a lot of great Batman video games out there. Everything from Batman Arkham City to Batman Forever. Oh, wait, not this one. Get out of there. Batman Returns on the NES. And our subject of today, Sunsoft's Batman, based on the Tim Burton movie of the same name. It's 1989, Batman, the video game.
I'm Batman.
It's Batman on the NES. Yes, this is a game that I've wanted to do a review for a very long time, and the reason I've been putting it off is because this game is hard. It's Nintendo hard. Ooh. And you know what that means? That means it's an old school retro game that's difficult, but with a little bit of time to practice and a little bit of patience, you can master it. You can learn those patterns, and you can complete the game. And I've done that twice. Once off screen and once fully recorded just for you. So I think it's time to review Batman the video game. So let's slide this bad boy in our NES and play some Batman. Based on the iconic DC superhero Batman, Batman the video game is a 2D action side-scrolling platformer game. Yes. And it has 3 distinct features that I'd like to tell you about. One of them is the graphics. It has a very dark, neon-style color scheme, and the graphics look great. It also has a rockin' 8-bit soundtrack, one of my favorite soundtracks on the NES library. And, of course, the controls. This game has some of the best controls that I've ever played with on an NES video game, and some of the best controls out of any game. This game makes you be the Batman. If you fail in this game, it is your own fault because the controls are so spot on that it's your mistake. The graphics of this game might throw off newcomers a bit, not just because it's a 2D, 8-bit NES game, but because the graphics and colorization of certain characters and the backgrounds are kind of distinct and unique to this game. The backgrounds are almost always just pure black, and the colors of everything else is usually either metallic looking or neon, which I think looks really great. It's really good to have that neon colorization coming off the screen with those big bright pixels and the black background to have that contrast between you and the background. So it's not really parallaxing, but it does get some depth and some unique character to the game. The character of Batman is actually purple in this. Yes, purple. He wears a purple suit, and it's kind of purple and blue throughout his whole costume and character, which might throw some people off, but at this point in time, it's actually pretty iconic, similar to Friday the 13th, how Jason Voorhees is like purple as well and has a green mask. There are even some enemies in this game that longtime fans of the Batman comics will recognize and be able to point out as they're playing through this game. In fact, this game bears little resemblance to the movie that it's based on. Aside from a few cutscenes here and there, a lot of the game doesn't really look too much like the movie, the soundtrack's not like the movie at all, and the characters that Batman fights and interacts with are not in the movie either. But that's okay. This is one of those movie games that's actually really great and can stand on its own separate from the movie itself. So the movie's great and the game's great, but they're both separate entities. Although it's different than the film soundtrack by a huge amount, the NES game's soundtrack is awesome. It's amazing. It sounds so good. It's one of those soundtracks that you want to hear on repeat, and now with the power of YouTube and soundtracks, you can go and listen to that outside the game and still enjoy it. The only downside to the game's soundtrack is that there's only 4 level songs, even though there's 5 levels in the game, so the first level repeats on the 5th stage. But all these tracks are good and enjoyable on their own. The The controls in this game are once again one of the best controls I've ever played within a video game. And let me remind you that the NES controller only has 2 real buttons. The controls are so good, in fact, that about 99% of the time, if you mess up, it's your own fault. The controls are near perfect. The gameplay is pretty simple and straightforward for a platformer game. You jump on platform to platform, fighting enemy after enemy until you reach the boss at the end of the stage, and then you complete that stage and move on to the next stage. There's actually 5 stages in this game to play. Batman's main attack is punching with his fists. Pretty plain, pretty simple, but there's also sub-weapons. Sub-weapons are used by picking up a sub-weapon item block dropped from an enemy, and there are 3 sub-weapons to use, which for some reason you select by pressing start, which is usually pause, but on this game it's not, it's swap with select. Whatever, it works. And the 3 weapon types are the Batarang, which is a ranged, basically like a boomerang, comes back to you, and you can actually throw that really fast, so that's a good weapon choice. And then you've got the gun, which is supposed to be more like a grappling gun or like a launcher or something. It's not like a straightforward gun because Batman doesn't really use guns. So you got a gun, and then you've also got another thing that shoots out 3 shots, so it's like a tri-shot gun. And you've got those 3 sub-weapons that you can switch between at any time. The other items in the game that are dropped randomly from any enemy include hearts, which 1 heart replenishes just a little bit, 1 point of your health gauge. And then you've got another thing, which is a B symbol, I think, and it's like, gives you points, and the points, they don't really matter. They were set when you get a game over, and you're probably going to lose a lot in this game at first. So they're basically just bragging rights. They don't seem to give you any extra lives or anything like that, so it's not like Castlevania. The key feature of this game, of course, is wall jumping. Wall jumping is something that you're going to have to master early on in this game to progress with it later in the game. You're going to need to learn those skills as you play, because it's going to come up real fast and it's going to hit you in the face like a wall. Luckily, wall jumping is super easy. It's easier than Mario 64, it's easier than Super Metroid, and in fact, I like it better than the wall jump in Ninja Gaiden. To wall jump, you simply jump into a wall, there's a short frame of animation where Batman's leaning off the wall, then you press jump again to leap off of it. Now, wall jumping, as with the controls, is very, very precise in Batman. There's different points to the wall that you can jump at, so you can jump on the wall low and then jump off, you can jump on the wall high and then jump off, you can jump on the wall and jump right in the middle and then jump back off. There's also segments where you're going straight up towers, so you're going to need to wall jump back and forth consecutively over multiple times while dodging enemies and other traps. And keep in mind that wall jumping can be used at any time during the game, not just on specific moments, but at any time. And there's a couple instances where you might find a shortcut that'll help you progress through the level. The game is 5 levels long with 5 boss fights, and an additional boss fight with the Joker. And you're going to need everything that you've learned throughout the game to reach and fight and defeat Joker. The first stage is the Gotham City streets, and you'll be fighting the most basic enemies here, so learn their patterns as they will come back in more numbers and stronger forms later on, but with the same patterns. So try out the 3 sub-weapons, get used to punching, and get used to wall jumping. Once you reach stage 1-2, you'll need to use the wall jump in order to proceed through the level. It's important to note that when you make it to level 1-2 or so on, you'll continue from that 1-2. You won't continue from 1-1. Unless you're at a boss fight, then you'll continue on the level segment right before that boss. The first boss is pretty easy, because he just flies around the stage on a set pattern and doesn't attack you directly. To defeat this boss, you can crouch in either the left or right corner of the screen, throw your Batarang a few times when he swoops down, you can defeat him pretty fast. Stage 2 is the chemical plant, and there's new traps including acid on the floor and electrically charged traps above you. Wall jumping in Stage 2 is becoming both more important and more dangerous. You have to be more precise with your expert skills to jump over certain hazards. There's a shortcut you can take on Stage 2 where you jump up and avoid a few platforms, saving you a little bit of time, and maybe saving you from some danger. The second stage's boss is a giant machine with lots of traps and lots of weapons on it. It's honestly a bit hard to describe just by thinking about it. There's 3 different portions of the same boss fight. First section is you're going on a conveyor belt and you're throwing your batarang at these two guns until you destroy them. Once you destroy those two guns, jump on the next platform, but you can't fight the boss's core just yet. You have to turn to the left and shoot your gun into the other core on the left side, dodging the lasers when the bullet flies by. So you want to use a range attack there so you don't have to run through it and hit it with your fists. As soon as that thing blows up, quickly run to the right and duck and crouch. If you're in the right spot at the right time, you will not get hit by the lasers that come out of the right wall. Jump up when the lasers aren't shooting and punch, 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 punch a few times, and then you can destroy that core of the machine. The third stage is the sewer. Yuck. Ugh. There's a few enemies here that I never really found a good tactic for. There's these frog-like enemies that are really strong, they have a lot of health, and they do a lot of damage. And they jump on you, and they jump on you, and they jump on you until you're dead. If you use a batarang and you turn around at the right moment, the batarang will fly back and hit him, and that's the best tactic I've found for fighting that monster. There's some major wall jumping sections in the sewer stage, and right after it, in the caves, which is a part of the same stage, there's a wall jumping tower that you have to go up. And that's the first tower like this in the game, and it's really important that you dodge the enemies and dodge the spikes on the side as you continue to jump and jump and jump back and forth up this wall until you make it to the top. Wall jumping is actually one of my favorite aspects of this game, and I find it to be the most fun part of this game, is just jumping back and forth on the walls. The third boss is a real fighter. You just want to hit him as fast as you can, and as much as you can in as short amount of time as possible. There's no real tactic here, there's just button mash and button mash. Hit him and hit him and hit him until he's gone. The fourth stage is, well, it's kind of like a sci-fi lab with a lot of robots and machinery. The good thing about stage 4 is a lot of the enemy types are repeated now, so if you've learned the patterns from them earlier in the game, you should be able to still beat them again on stage 4. The third portion of stage 4 is one of the trickiest platforming sections of the game. Batman is jumping on very small moving platforms, about the same size as he is, and wall jumping back and forth in between those. And there's a pit of fire underneath him. The boss of stage 4 is really weird. It's two giant boxes that are moving on a set pattern. The easiest way to fight this boss is just by using your punches. If you jump up on the middle platform and you wait for one of the boxes to come towards you, just hit it as it goes by. Eventually you'll destroy one of the boxes and the other box will start moving really fast. That's when you want to switch to the batarang. And the batarang is good because not only is it a faster weapon than your punches, it also can reach from a far range, so when the box moves away from you, you can still keep hitting it. This boss might take a couple tries doing that method, but it should work. The fifth stage is the Gotham City Cathedral. It's the final stage of the game, and it's a relatively short one, but it's by far the hardest stage in the game. Get ready for some expert level wall jumping as you go through the tower leading up to the Joker. The tower portion is so tricky that you have to memorize exactly where all the enemies are and the traps and hazard placements are as well. There's not only enemies, but there's also claws that come out and shoot at Batman, but they're all set in specific places each time. So every time you play it, those same patterns will be there, so if you can figure it out and memorize it, you can make it up that tower alive. Once you make it up the tower, get ready for a boss fight. But wait, it's not the Joker, it's another boss. So you fight this boss just by crouching in the corner and throwing that batarang as fast as you can, and that's how I beat him. It's important to note that if you beat that boss once, you don't have to fight him again. The next time you make it up to that cathedral, you'll be right at the Joker. And now we're going to talk about the final boss fight of the game, the Joker. Here it is, it's Batman's final boss fight with Joker. This is the toughest boss fight that I've played in a game in a long time. The Joker has multiple attacks. He has a gun and can move around very fast. He can also summon lightning bolts from the sky as an attack. Most players of this game have used punches to defeat the Joker. However, both times that I beat him, I used the batarang because I got a better range and I can move faster. It was just a little bit easier for me to fight him with the batarang weapon rather than punching him. But the Joker is still stronger, faster, and has more health than any of the bosses before him. In fact, it took me just as long to fight the Joker and beat him as it did for me to play through the entire game. Yeah! Once you beat the Joker, congratulations, you have just beat a Nintendo hard video game on the NES. After the battle, there's a final cutscene where it shows Joker's fall to his death. This is actually a pretty gruesome cutscene, and it zooms in multiple times into Joker's face. Kinda dark for an NES game. And now Gotham City is once again saved by our hero, Batman. If you want to get nuts, let's get nuts. But if you want to be Batman, play Batman the video game on the NES. Yeah.